Live from MMA Fighting Studios, this is Between the Links. And now, your host, Mike Heck.
The iconic voice of Esterlin welcomes you to a brand new edition of BTL. Yes, it's Thursday, and that means some banter about this crazy sport of mixed martial arts is coming your way, and we're back with the usual format for the most part, and I'll explain that all in a moment. But before we do that, let us introduce the combatants this week. First, Mr. No Gray Area, Mr. Hot Take, the Cannibal Kid. He's your favorite Valentine and the gimmick in your parlay of life from MMAfighting.com, Mr. Jed Meshew. Hello, Jed. Happy Thursday.
Hey, Mike. Happy Thursday. Sad Thursday. Not to bring the show down right at the start, but my sister lives in Kansas City, and it was pretty shitty yesterday. So hearts with everyone there. Hope you haven't been affected by it if you're watching this, and let's have a good show.
Yeah, unbelievable shit. And I agree with that sentiment. Tough to transition, but back on the program, he is the man with the greatest theme song in MMA history. You may know him from the MMA Hour, but he's also our social media guru here at MMAfighting.com, Mr. New York Ric, Eric Jackman. How we doing, my man? Happy Thursday.
Yeah, I'm doing great. As the interim Prince of Positivity, hopefully we can send some good vibes to those folks out there in Kansas City and beyond. Thinking of them, and yeah, let's have a good show.
Yes. Well, what we're going to do is, for the first 3 rounds, we'll do what we always do. We'll go through the big talking points. Of course, we're going to talk about UFC 298. Of course, we have to talk about UFC 300. And then in round 4, we're actually going to turn it over to you guys and gals. We'll do a Q&A for a little news and notesy few topics here with the super chatters. We'll choose one of you even to deliver us the knockout round question, the best knockout round question suggestion. Should it go that far? I know that doesn't happen a lot in this game of ours. We will have you guys decide that. So stay tuned for that. Also, if you want to be a part of the show, if you have a follow-up question or a comment on something we're talking about, if you agree or disagree with one of the combatants, super chatters get put up on the screen. We may even add your question or comment to the banter about said topic. So with that said, let's get into it. Let's begin with Saturday's UFC 298 fight card in Anaheim, California, but more specifically, the main event between Alexander Volkanovski versus Ilia Topuria. Now, gentlemen, this card deserves better. This fight deserves better, but it is flying under the radar a bit because of 299 and this whole thing about the UFC 300 main event and the mystery that we're all a part of. But New York Ric, I'll begin with you. In terms of individual fights that are on the books right now for the UFC or even MMA as a whole, where does Volkanovski versus Topuria rank for you in terms of intrigue and excitement?
Yeah, it's up there. Maybe number 2. I'm definitely interested in this fight. I think there's a lot on the line for both competitors, right? It seems like Ilia Topuria is setting himself up for this trajectory where he's alluding to Conor McGregor, trying to take the path Conor McGregor has taken, talking about Red Panty Night and trying to be that kind of breakout star. And it seems like if all goes according to plan, could potentially be that. Whereas Volkanovski is kind of the old guard, the pound for pound great who's trying to hang on and reestablish himself after a rough knockout against Islam Makhachev, but answer those questions and then say, I'm still here. I'm still the featherweight king. And we see what happens from there. So as far as stakes go, A+ stakes here. As far as the fight itself goes, in terms of what I think of these two fighters from a technical standpoint and skill standpoint, another A+. So it's up there. It's probably only behind Max and Justin for me in terms of interest, which I don't think has nearly as much stakes. Certainly, a shot at Islam Makhachev could be on the line for both or either there, but this is already a title fight. And I certainly think that takes precedent, or rather takes preference. And so it's 1 or 2. And it's hard because it's a toss up between those, but it has me. This is a fight I've been looking forward to, and it is finally here, and I'm very excited about it.
Jed, what say you? Is it New York Ric saying 1 or 2? Is it that high for you?
So it's not. I think you probably knew that because you probably listened to No Bets Barred. But I will say I've come even higher than I was. So when Connor and I were talking to No Bets Barred this week, he said this is like maybe my most anticipated fight, certainly top 3. And I didn't have any issues with that. If this is your most anticipated, or top, 3, top 5, I mean, certainly in my top 5, uh, absolutely okay with it. Previously, though, like it would have been, right? Like when this fight was sort of first being announced, but we've just had a bunch of other cool stuff happen since then. Whereas I'm like, we're gonna get Dricus du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya, which is a fight I've wanted for over a year at this point. So like that's probably my number one. I don't know if you guys know this, but Dustin Poirier is about to wage war with Benoit Saint-Denis. And that fight may not have the stakes that this weekend does. It certainly doesn't. But that fight is just going to be categorically insane. So, like, how can I put this over? And then, of course, Max Gaethje. I think that is the crown jewel in all of our eyes, right, of the fights that are to come. So, but I just finished my write-up on this fight. It should come out later today on the site. And as I watched more tape and got even more into it, I was like, yeah, I got no issues with this being number one. I am very, very pumped to see this fight. I think it is arguably more fascinating than any of the other fights just because of the other parts at play here. Is Volkanovski too old? Is Topuria too young, too green? Like, how does that age factor him? How does the knockout coming off that? Oh, where are we? Does Topuria know something we don't? Because the man is talking as if he is already the champion, not in a way that a lot of people do either. Like it's subtle, but it's noticeable. Most fighters think they're the best in the world. He knows it. And whether he is right or wrong, we're going to find out on Saturday. But it is, Rick kind of said it pretty appropriately, and kind of the parallels I've been drawing this week and last week and as this build up is he's the next Conor McGregor. Now, can he get there? I don't know. He's got to win this fight to get there. But I truly think that if he comes in here and if he high rolls like Conor did on the biggest moments, if he 13 seconds Volkanovski, one, my little heart will sing. And two, then sky's the limit. Like sky is the absolute limit if he 13 seconds Alexander Volkanovski on Saturday.
And that's what's so interesting about this fight, because you have people on one side who are like, I'm so into storylines and like potential questions. And then there's the other people that are in it for like the love of the game, where it's just, I want to see the high level fighters fight the other high level fighters. And I feel like this fight checks off the boxes for absolutely everybody. But for the questions, Jed, and Rick, you brought this up too, but I'll start with you, Jed. There's so many of them, like not just heading in, but what the future looks like for both guys as well, as you guys have both laid out, because Topuria has been talking the damn talk. He's incredibly confident. He already has the IG bio as 15-0. He's already taken photos with the belts. He already says he's the champion. He feels like Volk is not just going to be a chapter in his book, but it's going to be an easy fight for him. And if he wins, like you said, he's off to the races. And if he loses, yeah, it might be a tough time for him in the short term, but it's a guy that we are very confident that we'll see back. But on the Volkanovski side, man, it's about the Makhachev fight in October. Should he have taken that fight? Should he have taken this fight so soon after the knockout? Will he stay at 45 or move up to 55 if he wins? What happens if he loses? There's just so many questions here, Jed. I can't remember a singular fight having so many potential storylines all wrapped up into one like this. So what's the biggest question you have heading into this fight, and why? Is it something heading in, or questions you have about the future of this division, the future of both guys, depending on the result?
It's really what does Topuria look like? Because I am, and not to spoil the lead here, I'm picking Alexander Volkanovski to retain his title this Saturday. I can't get around it. As I dove into it, I think this is a really good fight for him, honestly. Unless all of the other stuff that people are focused on is true. If he is too old, if he's too slow now, if he's like getting a little slower, Topuria is a hammer. But kind of just looking at the X's and O's, I do think that some of this has been overblown. It's not like Volk has looked older, and he is not getting better. Like he has already been the best fighter he will ever be. Everything from here on out is a worse version of peak Volkanovski. But I mean, he's still one of the 3 best fighters in the whole damn world. So like, that's fine. that's just how age works. My questions are all centered around Topuria, because I know what we're getting from Alexander Volkanovski. I don't think the knockout's as big an issue as some people are making it. If Topuria knocks him out, then that's certainly going to be a storyline, but I just think that's sort of a false story, right? Like he didn't get slept by Islam. It's not like it would be a little bit better if he took more time off for the sake of it, but he's had a good amount of gap here. He was immediately coherent after the Islam fight. It wasn't like, hey, he needs to take a big long time off. I think if he gets knocked out by Topuria, it's not that he got knocked out by Islam and he was faded. It's that Topuria hits really hard. And Volkanovski has never been the most durable fighter. Like he has been, Chad Mendez dropped him. Max Holloway put him to a knee. Like he is a durable dude, but it's not like he's Max Holloway and his chin is cracked. He got hit by a big ass dude who kicked him in the face. Like that's just going to happen sometimes in this sport. So my questions are all around Topuria. What does he look like? Because the gap between the Ilia Topuria we saw against Bryce Mitchell and the like to the one we saw with Josh Emmett is enormous. It is the Grand Canyon. He looks so different, so much better in the Emmett fight, so much more tactical, reserved, smart, that if this is a sign and he is just going to be taking these giant strides fight to fight, then Volk could be in some real trouble, man. Or if that was just a one-time thing, or if, he always has that in him, but it's still not enough. It is, what does this dude look like coming in here? And more importantly, what does he look like when he is not the hammer? Because in every fight we've ever seen, he is mostly controlling the action. I don't think he's going to have one-way traffic against Volkanovski. He's going to have to make adjustments, figure out how to work through the middle section of this fight and get the win. Can he do that? And if he can, then boys and girls, we got a new featherweight GOAT. Like we got a new guy who's taking charge of the division for the foreseeable. But if not, well, that doesn't mean he's out of it, but that does make us recontextualize kind of where he's at, what his ceiling is, what his future is. So my questions are all around Topuria because I think I know what we're getting from Volk. But mostly I just want to see it. Like I don't have questions so much as I just have the desire to watch these two men do battle.
York Ric, where do your biggest questions lie? Are they on the Topuria side or are they on the Volkanovski side right now?
Yeah, I think Jed laid it out very nicely. I'm more enamored by the mystery than I am by what I know. What I know is Alexander Volkanovski is capable of turning back Ilia Topuria, right? The version that we have seen, I know, is capable of winning this fight. Currently, I lean toward Alexander Volkanovski. And I know that, right? I'm aware. I've seen this before. And I know that it's possible that he was just facing an Islam Makhachev who's bigger than him, who he was not going to be able to compete against, and he's not a lightweight. I know that that's a possibility. I also know if you look at the last 5 years for Alexander Volkanovski, it goes Jose Aldo, Max Holloway, Brian Ortega, Korean Zombie, Max Holloway, Islam Makhachev, Yair Rodriguez, Islam Makhachev, and now Ilia Topuria. Outside of Korean Zombie, I know that every single one of those is a tough out for everybody on the planet, and he's strung those all together back to back to back to back to back to back to back. And I also know that can take a toll on you. And I wouldn't be shocked if all of a sudden he fell off a cliff. I wouldn't be shocked if those miles started to add up. I wouldn't be shocked if beating Max Holloway 3 times takes something out of you and losing to Islam Makhachev twice takes something out of you. So either of those two outcomes on the Volk side wouldn't shock me. Reestablishing order? No, not shocking. Being a diminished product? Not shocking. But Ilia Topuria is a mystery to me. Like, I believe in his potential. I've seen what everybody else has seen, but he needs to be able to do it. He needs to be able to execute it against who I believe is, to Jed's point, one of the top 3, top 5 fighters on the planet currently still, regardless of the loss to Islam Makhachev. And if he's able to do that, the ceiling comes off. What he is capable of as a draw for the UFC, as a superstar, as somebody who can carry forward from this point, the ceiling is removed. And so I'm much more enamored by the mystery of that than the things I know about Volkanovski, win or lose. So yeah, similar thoughts to Jed. I'm much more interested in kind of unpacking Ilia Topuria in the aftermath of this fight.
Another question I keep getting, and I might as well bring it up to both of you guys, is, and we seem to get these for situations like this. We have like the long reigning champion. We have the up and coming stud. We talked about this with the Sean O'Malley, Aljamain Sterling fight to some degree. Like, is the UFC hoping for one thing or another? Even Craig Jones was asked by Ariel on Monday, do you feel like the UFC is hoping for one result or the other? And he's like, well, I think there's probably like a part of them that thinks Ilia Topuria winning is great because he could be a potential superstar. They could tap into a different market. I don't know if I agree with that, New York Ric. I kind of feel like this is sort of a win-win for the UFC because if Volk wins, like the legend grows. he does become more popular because everyone loves the guy who shuts up the big mouth. But if Topuria wins, yes, we get to strap the rockets to him. Do you feel like this is sort of a win-win for the UFC, or do you feel like there is a part of them that is like, let's strap the rockets to Topuria, maybe we have something here?
Yeah, I do not think this is a win-win. I think Ilia Topuria winning this fight would be a best-case scenario for the UFC. Volkanovski's done everything he can do at featherweight to the point where we're kind of running out of options if he's able to knock off Topuria. And then we saw how he looked going up to lightweight. Now, I will caveat that with against the best lightweight on the planet. So certainly you have to take that with a certain grain of salt when you're doing that analysis. But quite frankly, I just don't think he's big and has many advantages at lightweight. And I'm not particularly interested in that. I'm more interested in Max Holloway, and even him, I'm kind of like, I kind of prefer him at featherweight. So we're going to be in a sticky spot with Volkanovski if he wins this. There's not a lot of great options for him. There's going to be some contenders that maybe crop up, but I think the unlimited potential if Ilia Topuria is able to get this done is something that will be very appealing for the UFC. In addition to, I just think the ceiling is higher, right? Volkanovski became a really popular fighter. But there's a limit to that, right? He's not the most popular fighter. And the resume, if you look at the resume, it would say he probably should be, but he's not. There's something that doesn't connect with fans in a way that you need to be to cross into that next level of superstardom. Ilia Topuria, whatever it is, Ilia Topuria has it. If he's able to put the resume together in the way that we've compared him to Conor McGregor did that. If he's able to put those fights together, I think he has it. I think he has the potential to cross over and be an even bigger star. I think the ceiling is higher for Ilia Topuria because we've already pretty much seen the ceiling of Alexander Volkanovski. So I think they want, and I think they should be wanting, an Ilia Topuria win here because of what it opens up.
Do you agree with that, Jed? I mean, Volk has been a company guy. He's never given them problems. He's the longest reigning champion. He's willing to take fights on short notice for them. He's even saying he's willing to turn around and save UFC 300 if he's needed. Like, he's not a guy that's going to hold the UFC up for more money. And he is getting more and more popular with each fight that he has, depending. I mean, obviously he lost to Makhachev, but still, if he goes out there and waxes up Topuria, like, he's only going to get more popular. And if he decides to move up to 55 and he vacates the belt, you could still put Topuria back at a title fight and just throw him in there with Mobzar. So you could still have both. So is this a win-win for the UFC, or are they just deep down in their hearts, are they hoping that Ilia Topuria comes in there and backs up everything he's been saying?
It's not a win-win, but it's a no-lose, right? I largely agree with Eric. There is clearly a better outcome for business, and it's Ilia Topuria winning. It's fine if Volkanovski wins. Topuria is still young. Volkanovski wins. If Volkanovski wins, honestly, I think there's a really good chance that he just vacates the belt. It's like, all right, that's it. I beat the last dude. I'm not going to fight this. I beat a guy in the next generation. I'm not going to sit here and wait to get picked off. I'm going to go up and, pursue the good fights at lightweight, because who wouldn't be interested in watching him fight Dustin Poirier and sort of do all those kind of things. So that's a fine outcome if he wins, right? Like, he does that. Maybe they convince him to fight Mobzar one more time, etc. But so it's a totally acceptable outcome because then Ilia gets put back in. The obvious better outcome is Ilia Topuria winning because, to Rick's point, we know who Volk is. And Volk is a popular fighter. Like, Volk has gotten over. Certainly the last kind of 2 years has really elevated him in certainly like our fan base's eyes. The number of people who hate me because of my Alexander Volkanovski takes has been apparent. Like, he's over, but he's never going to be Conor McGregor. Ilia Topuria can be. And it's that simple. Would you rather have a champion who is 35, pushing 36, at best has 2 more years, like really elevated in this sport, probably doesn't even have that, might hang around for a bit, but like his short time, and we know where his cap is as far as popularity? Or do you want the 27-year-old dude who could be the next Conor? I'll take option B, please, because also option B, by the way, comes with a whole new country to break into and to elevate in these regards. So, like, it's pretty clearly better for business if Topuria wins, but I don't think the UFC cares too much. This is not like it's a little bit like Conor versus Jose, but it's not quite that much, where it's like, all right, it would be fine. Like, the UFC was clearly deeply incentivized for Conor to win that fight. Here they are incentivized, but they can live with the other outcome as well.
Yeah, it's more Connor Jose than Sterling Sean O'Malley. Like, it's pretty clear.
Yes.
he was hoping for in that fight.
In both of those scenarios, they're pretty clearly hoping for an outcome. In one of them, it's much more acceptable for the other outcome. And that's what this is, which is a sign of good bookmaking from them, frankly. Like, hey, they can't lose on Saturday. They can win big, but they can't lose.
Can I just say that being a company man thing isn't necessarily a good thing from the perspective that, like, there's such a thing as too much Alexander Volkanovski. Like, when you are the guy who is that, you devalue yourself to a certain extent. When they know they can call you and put you on, people need to miss you. People need to have some mystery around you. The idea that you can say, hey, maybe let me just headline UFC 300 and they consider it, means you're probably not leveraging everything you can to get the most money out of your career and probably put yourself in the best position to be a star. There's such a thing as being overly eager and overly active. And I think Volkanovski has actually kind of fallen prey to that, to be honest. Like, there's like Conor McGregor being missed. Now, certainly, don't get me wrong, this is too missed. This is maybe he needs to come back and the thing's not working properly. But you need to be missed. And I think Alexander Volkanovski's not been missed enough, to be honest. He's been too active. And when the UFC is so willing to just say, yeah, we'll take it, you're probably not doing it right, if I'm being honest. You probably need to be missed a little bit more.
I deeply disagree
Jed,
with Rick on this one.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Jed, you said nothing, but your face said your face wrote a book. How do you want to retort?
To the extent that Rick is talking about Volkanovski hemorrhaging his own leverage, I fully agree. Like, except for in the 300 instance, because 300 he would headline the biggest pay-per-view of the year, and like it'll be the most money he'll ever make. But in the idea of like, if you're the company dude, you're not getting paid well, or as well as maybe you could be. I think that's absolutely true. Like, Ronda Rousey, famously, the UFC loved her because she was super easy to work with. And as we learn more about it, it's like, actually, Ronda was just deeply underpaid. She made more than everybody else. It was like Ronda probably could have played a little bit more hardball and gotten way better paychecks than she did. So to that extent, I agree. But I think that what Rick is saying works for some people. Mike, you have often said kind of, you got to give us time to miss you. And I think that that's actually true holistically for the UFC in total. We should take some more weekends off because it does make, like, at the start of this year, we got bad Apex cards and was like, hell yeah, we've been off for a month. This is fun. I think that works for a very specific brand of fighter. Nate Diaz can pull that off. Someone with that sort of gravitas. For 99% of the MMA world, I think that the way you become a star, the way people get to know you, particularly with a fan base that's so transitory like ours is, like people have 3-year terms, it's just being super active. Khamzat Chimaev became popular because he fought 3 times in a month. Like, that was it. And he beat the hell out of people. And we're like, oh, I saw that dude every weekend beating the shit out of somebody. He's awesome. And now look at him. He has not been active, and he still has a bit of that gravitas, but it still feels weird that we have missed him too much in this regard. For Volkanovski, maybe he doesn't need to fight like 4 times a year, but I do not believe his issue has been being too competitive at this point in time. I think if he turns around at 300, that would be huge for him outside of monetarily. That's the sort of stuff that, to Rick's point about Connor in part became so popular because he was always, I'll fight on 2 weeks' notice. I'll fight anybody. I'll fight right now. And then he backed it up. So I firmly disagree that what Volk needs is a little more time off. I think he's kind of been playing that aspect of it really, really well.
I'm not going to, drag this on too long, but the examples you used, Connor, they did that early. Khamzat, they did that early. Then they became the guys who did not do that. And that is the strategy. I think the horse is out of the barn here. Volk has already messed this up. I'm not suggesting all of a sudden he go decrease his activity. I think he messed this up. It does not feel like a special attraction when Volk fights, and that's the problem. That's the reason why Khamzat would get a call to headline 300 before Volk would. That's why Volk is headlining this card and wouldn't be the choice A for UFC 300. It does not feel like a special attraction when he fights, and that's why this would fly under the radar as opposed to UFC 300 or even 299, where Sean O'Malley seems to have a little bit more of that juice. And it's too late. I'm not suggesting that all of a sudden he's you know what, I'm really only wanting to fight once a year. It's already too late on that front, but I think the damage has been done where it's not great to be a company guy. You need to pull back a little bit and not be so game and not be so willing so that it does feel special when you fight. But there's a balancing there. There's a balancing there. You don't want to disappear forever.
I would just argue, and this can be the end on it. I would just argue that him being the company guy in the last year and a half, 2 years, is what has gotten him as over, and that the reason Connor and stuff can do that is Volk's just never going to have that gravitas that pulls him in this way, and the way he got over was by being more of the company dude. And then on a totally different but entirely related note, he can't take time off because he's 35. He needs to fight as many times as possible because, and I said that when this started, like 2 years ago, when he was like, I just want to be super active, just give me dudes to fight. I was like, yeah, Volk's really smart. And the reason he is saying that is because he sees the cliff coming and he needs to get as many in as he can because time is coming. He is right behind him. And so he's got to get in as many fights as he can before Father Time surpasses him. So he super can't do it now for a number of reasons.
No, can't do it now. I would say he got over, but I think he could have gotten over bigger if it felt like a special attraction when the number one pound for pound guy was fighting. And Islam Makhachev has that, and John Jones has that, and he just never had that. And I think that was a product of how active he was.
Well, we branched off into a very fun and fascinating debate, but there's a lot more to talk about with this card because we have mentioned it's flying under the radar and more proof that it is flying under the radar coming up next. But the point for round one goes to Jed Meshew, 1-0. Good round, good solid.
We should just talk about this fight more. This fight rocks. The rest of this card is good. Don't get me wrong, but this fight rocks.
It's very, very good. Very, very, very good. Like I said, it checks off all the boxes. But talking about all the sort of under the radar stuff here, I mean, just look at the 3 fights that are going to precede the main event. We have Robert Whittaker coming off of a bad stoppage loss in his last fight to the now champion Dricus du Plessis fighting Paulo Costa, who hasn't fought in over a year and a half, but he's more popular than ever. So those are 2 huge names at 185. We have Ian Machado Gary looking to kind of answer some of the same questions Ilia Topuria is going to answer. Toughest test to date against a guy like Jeff Neal. And we have Henry Cejudo putting his career on the line. At least this is what he says. To what extent I believe Henry Cejudo at this point, I don't know. But he's putting his career on the line against Merab Dvalishvili. Not to mention the Anthony Hernandez-Roman Kopylov fight, which should be a banger to kick off the main card. Prelims are solid. We have Lemos versus Dern and a whole bunch of other things. So, Jed, I'll begin with you. Michelin grade for UFC 298, especially since the promotional push has been for 299 and 300.
Still a 2-star card, man. Like, I wouldn't fly across country to go see this. I wouldn't, take a big trip. But if I'm in California and within 5-6 hours, I'm for sure going to this card. It is... I mean, the main card is, you can have some quibbles if you want, but that's really picking nits. It's awesome. This card rocks. Even the prelims are largely good or they're relevant. I got to say, yesterday's MMA Hour, one of the fights I gave the least of a shit about on this whole card was the Oban Elliott versus Val Woodburn, because Val Woodburn got clobbered to death in his UFC debut, and that was useless. And Oban Elliott is like, not good. I don't know how else to say it. It's off the Contender Series. Of the 3 dudes off the Contender Series on this prelim, he's the worst of them. But then he did that interview with Ariel and it's like, actually, I would now die for Oban Elliott. I would charge into battle and be carried into Valhalla because I want this dude to win, because his story was compelling. And like him talking about Chael Sonnen and how he connected with them because they both lost their fathers and he made this promise and he's living out his dreams. Like, hell yeah. So now I'm suddenly in on that, and I'm going to be emotionally affected watching Oban Elliott get a W and then go and shake Chael Sonnen's hand for the first time. It's like, this card rocks. And if you're anywhere near Anaheim, I would encourage you to go to it.
Rick, what are you grading 298, even though it's not getting like a lot of the headlines like the next 2 cards are getting?
Yeah, it's an A minus, maybe A minus. It's maybe missing just, that star power that we've kind of, talked about to this point. But other than that, it's very, very solid. I'd almost say, like, with no disrespect intended to anybody who fought before this, but this is like where the UFC season really kicks off. Like that was
Correct.
preseason that we were watching, and this is now the season. Now we're getting into the meat of the schedule and hitting the ground running from here on out. So it's high for me, man. I mean, I'd almost like definitely 299 and 300 have some really, really exciting fights that I'm looking forward to, but it starts here. It starts with this one, and this is the one that's going to get the engine revved. So I am very excited. A minus at worst for me.
Just so we're clear, hitting the ground running. In 2 weeks, we do have Yair Senior Rosenstrike versus Shmuel Gaziev in a main event.
Detour. Maybe quick detour, then we get back on the road.
So we got 2 really good weeks, and then we're doing some good stuff. But in the middle, there's the worst fight I've ever seen. So
there's still time. There's still time to avoid that. Maybe they scrap that.
Well, before we take that,
remember when that was going to be the Saudi card, and now it's King Rosenstrike Gaziev.
That's why we'll put an asterisk and we'll allow it. We'll be like, you know what? They blew the Saudi thing. I can't wait
for that one.
That's going to be fun. What is also going to be fun is the Saturday. And York Ric, I'll go back to you. Of these fights I just mentioned on this main card, we're not talking about the main event here because that's the obvious answer. What's the most intriguing one for you? What has the most sizzle, the most interest, the most questions needing to be answered for you of these other main card fights?
I don't know if any of them really have some burning questions for me. Like I don't think any of them have near as much intrigue from that perspective as the main event, but probably Merab and Henry Cejudo, just because as we've laid out, Henry Cejudo is forecasting his retirement here and kind of laying his cards on the table if he's not successful. And Merab has kind of been the bantamweight champion in waiting. And if he gets past Henry, I would hope that he gets the next shot, but I don't think there's any guarantee there. I could definitely see a world where all of a sudden somebody jumps the line or he has to fight even like a Corey Sandhagen to get it. I would not be shocked by any of those outcomes. He seems to be somebody who they're not itching to put into a title shot. But here they've granted him an opportunity on a big pay-per-view card to say, hey, I'm here and I'm the guy. And I think he will take advantage of that opportunity. So that's probably the one, even though that's an obvious answer. That's probably the one to me that I have the most interest in from a what's next perspective, but none of them really have huge stakes in the way that I think the main event does.
What do you think, Jed? Anything stand out to you from that perspective? If you could only watch one other fight besides the main event, which one are you watching?
So when you phrase it like that, my answer changes. If I'm like, what's interested from like what comes next, all that, then I think, Ric's on it, right? It's Merab versus Cejudo. This weekend, we are all Merab Dvalishvili fans because Henry Cejudo said he will retire. So we can all support Merab in his journey, go to the nation of Georgia, because I think we'd all be better off if Henry Cejudo actually hung up his gloves, but did it for real this time instead of hanging up his gloves reluctantly for reasons that are still dumb and then just never actually retiring, just pretending the whole time that he was still fighting. But that fight probably isn't going to be that fun. I've watched both of those men fight. I'm pretty confident that however the fight goes down, it will be a lot of them holding each other. So if I'm just watching one, then I want the mix of things that I think are relevant and entertainment, and it's going to be Jeff Neal, Ian Machado Gary. I've been on the record. I know a lot of people don't like Ian Machado Gary. I, to some extent, understand it. I also think a lot of the hate for him is very, very silly. But mostly, I just think that dude is legitimately the truth, that he is of the next breed. And like, I think all of us here believe that Shavkat Rakhmonov is the future welterweight champion. I personally believe that Ian Machado Gary is going to fight him for that belt one day, and that fight is going to kick all the ass. And you've got a lot of stakes coming in here. If we said it's sort of the beginning of the year, at least I did, there was a lane for Ian Gary to kind of put himself in title contention before all of the shenanigans happened, because the welterweight title picture seemed a little open. Instead, all that stuff happened. Now we're here, but he goes out here, he beats Jeff Neal, who's got a lot of heat with him. There's all that backstory going, and puts on a statement performance against the top 10 dude. He's one win away. And not only that, he's one win away in like a pretty marquee spot. So I think the fight has a ton of stakes in that regard. And this fight's obviously going to be far more entertaining to watch than Merab versus Cejudo. So that would be my one.
York Ric, just so it's fair, and you have the opportunity to answer this as well. If you could only watch one other fight besides the main event, is it still Merab Cejudo, or are you picking something else?
No, it'd be the same. It'd be the same. I'd say Gary and Neal is probably going to be the most exciting kind of competitive fight. But I wouldn't sleep on Costa and Whitaker too. I'm excited about that one. I'm intrigued. I mean, if for nothing else, then I feel like we didn't get the best of either, right? Like Paulo Costa obviously falling off the fight with Khamzat Chimaev that was highly anticipated and we were really looking forward to, and Whitaker kind of in hindsight saying he was injured and not at his best in the fight against Dricus du Plessis and underestimated him and ready to bounce back. I'm interested to see how Whitaker looks and how Costa looks. So that one would be a close second from a, hey, I just want to see this in a vacuum perspective. I'm interested in how those styles kind of clash with each other. But it's going to be Gary and Neal for me as well.
Jed, who has... And look, if you want to go with the low-hanging fruit with the main event, have fun. But, we like to dive a little deeper here. Who has the most to lose on Saturday?
So, I mean, the main event is probably the answer, but let's not do that. Rick can take that if he wants to. We just talked a lot about the main event. Most to lose is... Oh, that's outside of the main event. All right, we'll go off the board. Mackenzie Dern has the most to lose outside of it because, I don't think the co-main event's really for anything. I'm of the opinion that Whitaker and Costa are both past their primes and probably not likely to get a title shot. Whitaker with a loss certainly won't get one. Costa with a win could maybe put himself in there, but middleweight's sort of moving past them. And then the rest of this, Cejudo has his whole career to lose, but he's a Hall of Famer. It's fine. Whereas Mackenzie Dern, I'm standing on this corner. No one else is on the island with me. I'm still here. I'm here alone at this point in time because it's pretty clear what Mackenzie Dern's ceiling is, but I can't shake it. Just be like, hey, she's really good at the grappling part of this game. And if she could ever figure out literally any other piece of it, then this division's weak enough that she has a trump card to win the title. And she can't put the rest of it together. It is impossible. But if she loses to Amanda Lemos, which we talked about it on No Bets Barred, I have a bet on Mackenzie Dern. She's going to win the first round with a takedown and back control for 4 minutes. And then she's going to lose the next two and lose the decision. It's going to be heartbreaking. But if she loses to Amanda Lemos, even I, the last supporter of the Mackenzie Dern potential champion or at least title challenger, I will have to get off the island as well. And so if you're losing my support, then really you're losing the most.
Nicole was saying you should trademark your exhale breath laugh. It's never change. York Ric, I'm taking the main event off the table here. So I'm not allowing you to take that option. Do you agree it's Mackenzie Dern? He mentioned Henry Cejudo who's putting his career on the line, but I kind of think it's somebody else.
I respect the effort from Jed there. It's obviously Merab Dvalishvili. He's sitting at a poker table. He's been in this tournament forever. He's stacking chips. And then the guy on the free roll who didn't even pay to enter is going to come in and potentially derail his title opportunity that he's been denied and probably was in line for because of his friendship. And then because the UFC seems to not be too keen on giving it to him. If he drops this fight to Henry Cejudo, it would be devastating for Merab. That would be a setback that I'm not sure all of a sudden he bounces back from. This is it. This is his time. If he can get another one in here, it seems like everything's lined up for him to get that title opportunity. If he botches it here, that would not be good. And so Merab has a lot to gain and a lot to lose at UFC 298.
Counterpoint. I've just been reached out to by our associate editor, Sheen Al-Shadi, who's informed me that he is also on the Mackenzie Dern Island, but if she loses, will be vacating as well. So not only would she lose my support, she'd lose Shaheen's support. That's a lot of loss for Mackenzie Dern.
I mean, at this point, it's MMA fighting support. It seems like, Mike, are you going to reveal yourself to be a hidden Mackenzie Dern stan living on the island?
I mean, I don't.
It's a sparse island. I don't think a lot of us.
I also don't think she's ever out of the title picture at 115, unless she just gets thumped.
She should be.
Bad.
That's how my head works, Mike, and that's why this is a problem. I'm like, hey, she should have beat Yan Jianan. If she knew how to punch somebody from the mount or whatever, do it, she would have clearly beaten Yan Jianan, who's about to fight for this belt. But she didn't, and so then she lost that decision, and then Jessica Andrade just cleaned her house. So I can't quit her, but if she loses this weekend, I will. That's why she has the most to lose.
I mean, there's a lot to really digest there. I mean,
what's
Rob
a
Dwell's
possible
really sitting
title
at the
fight
poker table
in comparison
and
to
Mackenzie
my
Dern
love?
losing 2 of the MMA fighting folk? There's a lot going on here. And by the way, if Mackenzie Dern wins, I don't think she's going to really like what's on the other side of a win, which is probably going to be Tatiana Suarez. And well,
I
we'll see how
mean,
that all plays out.
maybe you'd have made a lot of money betting on Tatiana Suarez not to make it to fights over the last several years. So maybe.
Well,
I say
let us
that
move
sadly
on.
because I think Tatiana Suarez is the best fighter in that weight class, but still, it's true.
She was supposed to be on this card, but now we get Mackenzie Dern, and we'll see if she can come through in a big way and stay in the title hunt. But let us move on to the biggest topic in MMA for the last several months. The point for round 2 goes to the interim Prince of Positivity, New York Ric. It is 1-1.
I knew
because he's absolutely right.
risky.
Rob Dwell's really is the correct answer.
Yeah.
I knew it was risky.
It.
To go for
I respect
Mackenzie
it.
Dern. Once again, she's cost me money and success.
Well, it's another week of BTL, gentlemen. It's another Thursday, and it's another day, another week where we do not have a main event for UFC 300, and it's another day, another week where everyone is losing their freaking minds right now. So I'm just going to make this as simple as possible, New York Ric. What the hell are we doing here? Why is this taking so long? What is happening? Is it really this hard? Like, I will say this. I understand they're trying to do something 300-y because we've turned that into like its own thing now. Like, what's 300-y and what isn't 300-y? They're trying to do something, but are they overthinking here? Like, why is this taking so long? We're less than 2 months. We're actually, I think, right at 2 months away, or just less than 2 months away from this card happening, and we still don't have a main event. What the frig?
No, they are not overthinking it. The expectations around this card have been built to a level that has not been seen before, and in my estimation, an unreasonable level. So they are trying to respond to that. And as Ariel laid out, there are some options there that I think would satisfy people, right? I think Hamzat being involved at all would satisfy people. I think DDP versus Hamzat, or DDP versus Israel Adesanya, or Hamzat versus Leon would satisfy all of that. And what would not satisfy everybody is Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad, because they could have announced that a month and a half ago, and that fight was sitting there. There's no the one that everybody already thought could have been on the card is not going to be the one that blows everybody's socks off. And for 300 main event, they're looking to have their socks blown off. So yeah, it's a situation that they've put themselves in. Make no mistake about it. But I understand the effort that is being put into it, because to this point, they've built expectations too high, and fans are going to be disappointed should it be the safety option of Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad. Now, it could be an option outside of those options that Ariel laid out. Certainly, I think there's a lot at play here, and they could be reaching to different areas than we're even aware of at this moment. But I don't think the safe option that could have been booked a month and a half ago and everybody already kind of knew about is going to be enough to satisfy those people. Now, once it is done, once we can finally move beyond this hysteria and this mania and this stupid nonsense, and the fight card is already built and everybody's on the road now to UFC 300, everything will be fine, because that card's already so good that it doesn't really matter what the main event is. Of all those options, they're all great. Although I know Jed would push back and say Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad is not great, so I will grant you that. But once we can move beyond the idea of what's going to be the UFC 300 main event, we'll step back, we'll take a breath, we'll touch some grass, and we'll realize that UFC 300 is absolutely loaded and worthy of our time and the attention that it got to this point, and then move on with our lives. I'm less concerned about what the main event of UFC 300 is, and more concerned about moving on from this hysteria, because it's grating and annoying, and get over it.
I'm with you. I cannot wait for this fight to be announced. But Jed, why hasn't it been announced? Like, what the hell is going on here?
They screwed the pooch. Actually, that's not true. I feel like I know what's happening here. One, let me just say, you Rick is both correct and fundamentally incorrect. He is correct in that this fight card is a 3-star, no doubt about it, Hall of Fame fight card. It doesn't matter what they add to it. They could add me fighting Rick on the prelims, and it would not bring this card down an ounce. Does not really matter in that regard for the fight card. At the same time, can't do it. I would bet anything. You cannot come out with Bilal Leon as the main event. It is simply anathema to logic and reason at this point. If they had led with it, people still would have been upset, rightfully so. It's the leafy greens of fist fights. It's two really good fighters who are going to have a highly competitive fight that is going to have 5 strikes per minute from each dude, and just not, you don't end your meal with kale salad. We're not in Europe. You don't end with a salad, like you end with dessert. And they're not going to put the BMF title as the main event. That would be fine. If they chose to do that, I could get behind that, of BMF title is the main event, Leon Bilal's the co-main event, strawweight title fight's the next one. That's just not how they're going to rock. The amount of buildup they have put into this, they can't do it. At this point, the amount of buildup they put into it, the only answer that's going to work is like Dana fights Tito after all these years. That seems unlikely that's what's going to happen. I do think that what we're going to end up getting, the reason it hasn't happened yet is because they are still negotiating, because unfortunately for them, one of these two gentlemen is extremely smart about business, and that gentleman's name is Dricus du Plessis. Now, he's come out and said, like, I can't really do it. He hasn't really outright said, I am not going to do it. This is, to me, feels like, hey, I would love to fight Izzy at 300. I can fight Izzy at 300. I'm going to need you guys to pay me to fight Izzy on this quick a turnaround at 300. And the UFC pinching their nose and trying all their other options to see, can we get Khamzat Leon? You can't. Khamzat's never going to get visa here. Can we get any? Nope, can't do it. All right, we're going to have to bite the bullet, open up the checkbook. I still think that's the most likely scenario, because otherwise I just don't know what else they have. It has to be something, because they've built it up at this point. They have said, we're going to have an announcement that's going to blow your socks off. And I got to tell you, my socks, my shoes, my over the shoes booties, and every other article of clothing is staying firmly on if Leon versus Bilal 2 is announced as the main event. Just, you can't do it.
I think he's putting on extra socks if they do that. Yeah. He's gonna bundle it up.
Putting on snowshoes. Like, it's just, you can't do it with them, with Dana being like, it's gonna blow you away. Like, okay. You can't. It's honestly might be the worst possible fight to announce as the fight that would blow you away.
I have been making this point on the MMA Hour. I will make it again here. The problem is expectation management, and they blew it. When they had Max and Gaethje announced, that was the time to say, you know what, the main event is Leon and Bilal, and this card's awesome, and you guys are going to enjoy it. Sentiment was at an all-time high, but instead of taking that opportunity, Dana White continued to double down on, it's going to be the greatest ever. You're not even going to believe it. Hell, we're throwing Cody Garbrandt and Davison Figueiredo as the first fight of the night. You guys you're not even going to be able to stand. You're going to fall over when you hear what we've got in store. And he doubled and tripled and quadrupled down, and they blew that, because now they're left with very few options. And Dricus du Plessis and Israel Adesanya are a good one, but it's going to cost them to make that fight. They missed the opportunity to take what was a really, really positive sentiment around Max and Gaethje and say, here's 300, look at this beautiful card and enjoy it. But instead they pivoted from that and kept promising things that they're not going to potentially be able to deliver. I hope they deliver it, because I think there's a lot of fans out there who have built up their expectations to meet the kind of rhetoric that Dana White has said. And if he's able to pull off what he can, then great. Like, all for it. I think 300 has a lot of opportunity to get better with those fights. But they could have taken an easier route if they had just done that at the time.
Can I make a plea to the UFC? Because we know that they watch this program, obviously, Mike. And my plea would just be this. You goofed. You already goofed, and there's no way to solve it. Like, at this point, any fighter you approach about main eventing recognizes they have you over a barrel. You have 2 options. It is to come out with Bilal Leon, bite that bullet, and say, yep, This is it. Look at how stacked the card is, and sell the lie that no one will believe, which is a fine option. Again, 3-star card. Like, in the scheme of things, it'll be okay. Or the much more likely option is whoever it is, you're just going to have to pay them. So just pay them and announce it so we can be done with this and move on to building that event. Like, whoever it is at this point has to know, oh, John Jones is going to fight Tom Aspinall and Steven Miocic. All right, add an extra 0 to the paycheck because I can read the news. Like, whoever it is, you're going to have to pay him. So just get off your ass and pay him, man. Hamzat's a pipe dream. He's never getting visaed. So pay the people and make this happen so we can have it and be ready to move on, because we're all ready for this. Like, you're playing out the string too long here.
Well, except if it's Mr. Company Man Alexander Volkanovski, then maybe you don't have to pay that much. Then you just say, yeah, let's just keep doing this forever. Roll him out for every main event.
I think even Volk at this point is smart enough to recognize that he can ask
Hopefully
for
so.
0.
Hopefully so.
Like, they have so transparently put themselves in a box here. Like, this was a fuck up from months and months ago. We talked about at the beginning of the year. Yeah, instead of building 299 and all this, the entire idea should have been building to 300 as a centerpiece card, but then they fire all these other good fights not on it, and that was a waste of time. Like, O'Malley Vera should be the 300 main event. That's just in Miami for reasons that still only God knows. Like, but you screwed up somewhere along the line. You just take your medicine and pay the people you need to make the whatever it is, whichever one of it is that you choose. But let's get this done. It's carrying on too long at this point.
Yeah, the nail in the coffin was John Jones coming out and saying they offered me this fight. Because if you're that low on the list, if you're all the way down to injured John Jones who just had surgery, not looking good for you.
Just
Real
offer an
rough.
extra 0 to John Jones to fight Stipe. He doesn't need
like, John,
to be
you know
fine. If John came in with one working arm, I'd still pick him to beat Stipe. Just offer him more money. There is a price you can pay to get him in the cage. There just is.
It's a fair point.
Just pay the price, get him in, and let's be done with this. Or admit that you don't care, and that's fine too. But just stop this. It's going to be great, and then keep not doing it.
There's still a chance they can deliver on that. I think we have to acknowledge that at least. There is still a chance, right? If it ends up being Izzy DDP, people will be happy. Is my sense. But there also seems to be
just deliver that though. Do it.
There also seems to be a cap on it, right? They're not gonna pay Conor. They're not going to hand out those pay-per-view points that come with the champions also fighting on that card alongside Conor as well. So there is a number that they're not willing to go to at the moment.
They make $1 billion a year, and they won't pony up an extra, because we're not talking $100 million. They would have to pay someone an extra $5 million. This is a $1 billion a year revenue generating company, and they won't come off for the biggest event in a decade. They won't pay an extra $5 million to get two dudes to fist fight. It is unbelievable, the level of greed at play.
Let me ask you guys this, and I'll start with you, New York Ric. Do you think right now, 1:23 p.m. Eastern on Thursday afternoon, a day and almost 2 days away from UFC 298, do you think they have this main event locked down yet?
No, absolutely not. There's a reason Dana White punted to, I will announce it after the event, according to a conversation with Kevin Iole saying, I will announce this after UFC 298. So yeah, they're pushing the timeline as far as they possibly can to lock down one of these things that they are trying desperately to get locked down. And they're going to use every minute of that opportunity until they're able to get what they need or be backed into a position where they have no alternative and no other choice. If the parties involved stay firm and say, you can move on, we're not going to do it. And then they say, you know what? We found that extra 10 million that you were looking for. We found it in our couch cushions and here it is. It's going to take till the buzzer for whichever side is unmoved to get this done. So no, I do not think they have it at this moment. Do I think they're probably moving toward it? I think they are. I think by this weekend we will know. But it will probably be a situation where they had their backs against the wall.
Dana
Jed,
has literally given money to podcasters from his own bank account. Like, he could just do that for a fight. Be like, hey, DDP, I will pay you $1 million of my own money to just fight this dude. And like, is he going to say no? No. Like, we're not talking about all the money in the world here in the scheme of this promotion. It's just making
Is
me
there-
increasingly upset at the UFC is all that this is doing.
Is there a chance that somebody who's fighting on Saturday could factor into this? Like, let's just say Paulo Costa dusts up Robert Whittaker in like 3 minutes and Izzy isn't locked down. Could they throw Paulo Costa in there? Because Paulo will look like a freaking superstar if he dusts up Whittaker. And DDP versus Costa, like, people wouldn't hate that. They would like that far better than Leon versus Bilal.
I want to be real clear. DDP versus Paulo Costa is a fight that must happen, and I will love it. It will be the stupidest, dumbest fight that will just rule. I don't care if it happens for the belt. I don't care if it happens in a year from now when DDP has dropped the belt to somebody, because it's unlikely he's going to hold on to it for a long time. But that fight is awesome. No, because I don't think it feels like Izzy would not be the guy who's blocking 300. It feels like DDP would be blocking it for money. And so DDP would just rather fight Izzy than Paulo Costa. But maybe my guess is that no one fighting this weekend. I had not even considered Volkanovski until he threw his name out there. But even so,
I don't think it's him.
who would he fight is the issue.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to tell me that we're pumped about Volk versus Movsar Evloev as the main event of that card? No, obviously not. It's ridiculous. So there's just not, like, Volk would be a good option to serve as like a co-main on short notice. Like, yeah, Volk's just going to he's going to fight at lightweight against, I don't know, Mateusz Gamrot, or obviously Gamrot's booked, but do something like that, but not for the main event. I don't think anyone here at Play is sort of live for that.
There's a lot of things at play here, right? Ticket prices, UFC's own timeline. If I'm a gambler, and I am, my move would be, if Ilia Topuria wins on Saturday,
Connor,
I would wait
Patty?
1 month. No, I would wait 1 month and see if Sean O'Malley can get it done against Cheeto. And I would pay him whatever it takes to do Sean O'Malley versus Ilia Topuria as the headline of 300. Now,
I hate you so much.
You're waiting a really long time. You're waiting a really long time to take this gamble, but I promise you it's better than whatever options you're trying to scrape together at the last minute here. That's what I would do as a gambling man. I would hope that UFC 300 sells enough or can wait for the main event and answer those stupid questions about what's going to be the headline for UFC 300 long enough to just see if Sean O'Malley gets the win and if Ilia Topuria gets the win, and then do that at UFC 300. But that's me. I'm willing to risk it.
Just the worst idea I've ever heard.
Jed loves when champions who have one title defense move up and
it's over like the number 12
against somebody who has no title defenses. That's Jed's favorite thing in the sport. I'm going to say something that I never thought I would say on this show or any other show that I'm a part of. I legitimately feel bad for Bilal Muhammad right now. Like, I really do, because one, he has to listen to all these reports from the most on-point journalist in the sport saying that the UFC is looking at Leon Edwards versus Khamzat Chimaev. He must feel like he's getting kicked in the ass. And I don't know if anybody, very few people in the media have been harder on Bilal Muhammad's path to a belt than I have been, because he has made so many mistakes, especially when he had a microphone in front of his face. But if they go Leon Khamzat, that's just rough for Bilal. If they go Leon Shafkat or Leon somebody else, that's just rough for Bilal. If they freaking announce Leon versus Bilal and everyone's like, wow, Bilal finally gets a shot, I feel worse for him, because people are going to groan the most loudest collective groan, maybe in MMA fight announcement history. Bilal Muhammad will fully get all of the brunt from this, and he automatically becomes the walk of shame fighter of the UFC. He is what Kristen Wiig's character was in the movie Bridesmaids to John Hamm's character. Bilal Muhammad becomes the fifth person on the list of phone calls for John Hamm's character to spend the night with. Like, that's what it becomes. It's so ridiculous. He's the last resort. This fight is going to get crapped on, and Bilal Muhammad is the, hey, what you doing at 3 a.m. text message guy. Like, it just sucks for him. It sucks.
If you eat that turd and don't get the title fight, yeah, that's rough. But if he gets the title fight, I don't think he cares. I don't think that he cares about that. If he gets that title fight, I don't think he gives one iota about what the fan sentiment is around it. Let's be clear, right? Bilal Muhammad knows what's going on, right? He understands the business of this. He also understands people don't like the idea of him fighting for the title for one reason or another. But he has to take the stance to protect himself and his own ego of they're wrong. I'm going to be the next champion, and I don't care how it comes. You have to take that stance. That's a stance that Merab finds himself in as well. There's been a reason that he is not getting the opportunity, and in fact, Leon Edwards himself has been in this position before. They were anti Leon Edwards fighting for the title until they could not hold on any longer, and they finally made the win streak into something. Bilal does not care. Bilal does not care. Now, if he does not get the title fight and he has to continue to hear this, yeah, you're right. Like that's rough for the ego. That's going to be a lot to take. But if it all culminates in the title shot, he doesn't care. He doesn't care.
Like, does he have any power at all here? Like, if the
No.
UFC calls him right now and said, "Hey, Bilal, we need you for 300," does he just
They're
immediately
not
say
calling
yes?
him.
He's just like,
They're not
Yeah.
calling him.
it's friggin'. That's why I feel bad for him. He just has to take it and then go fight and hope he wins. Because if he doesn't, he's never fighting for the title again. I'm not even convinced he's fighting for the title now. With all of this,
Neither am I.
Crazy.
He's gonna fight for the title now. Look, he's following in a long line of welterweights in this position. This, for whatever reason, has been a division like where there's just been an exceeding number of people like this. Like Leon Edwards, obviously, most recently. I remember the time when John Fitch was being passed over at 6 wins in a row for a title shot and had to get to an unheard of 8 at that point in time. That's just, part of it's his own fault. Part of it was Leon's fault, but eventually you'll get there. And I do think he's going to get there. Though I will acknowledge it was deeply amusing this week to be like, Khamzat Chimaev's involved? Huh? Where the hell did that come from? Isn't Dana the one who said that they're not doing 170 with him anymore? Like Chimaev's going to middleweight? Because Chimaev, after blowing weight by 8 pounds or whatever, was like, oh no, I can still do it. It's fine. And Dana was like, no, you're just going to middleweight now. So that was pretty amusing. But yeah, it's, be better, Bilal.
Well, hopefully we get this. I hope we get this announced before the press conference. Maybe do it during the broadcast. I think that'd be a great time to do it.
Oh,
do
the
it before.
post-fight
I don't
press
care.
conference. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I mean, it's possible.
I hope it doesn't happen at the press conference. I hope we get it before. Like on the broadcast, main card, first fight ends. Hernandez Kopylov beat 6 shades of shit out of each other and electrify us and get us all fired up for what's to come. And then you come out with a promo announcing this main event and give us all something to talk about. But if we have like, hey guys,
remember the name Muhammad.
All right, guys, 17,655, highest gate ever at the Honda Center. Here are the bonuses. Main event for 300, Leon versus Bilal. Who get the first question? Like,
They do it just a news dump to hide it. just that Friday news dump. Just there's nobody's paying attention. By the way, Bilal Muhammad, Leon was just okay. Don't worry about it. So that Ilia Topuria guy, huh?
Yeah. We need like Francis Ngannou to have some big fight news. Like I know he's got a fight with Joshua coming, but we need like his next fight announced, and then Dana will come out and drop this nugget before 298. But let's move on to some fun. The Q&A round. The point for round 3 goes to it's Jed Meshew. Even Bilal is making him yawn at this point. Just the mere mention of him for some reason.
It's pretty tough for your fight nickname to be remember the name. Like he started out badly. That was not a good choice.
Yeah, he might have to change the nickname to something else. It can't be remembered name. It's like, Bilal, please call my name Muhammad or something like that. Like, come on now. It's crazy. Just give this guy his freaking title shot. Golly, just not 300. Let's announce the title and a date, but just not April 13th.
I'm fine doing
All
it
right, let's
300,
go
but just put the BMF in the main. We can't end the night on that fight. It will ruin
I'm fine.
the whole
I'm fine with that as well.
on that fight.
I would be fine with that as well. All right. We're going to turn it over to the peeps. We're going to do a little news and notes thing. We'll take a few questions. Super chatters get the full bore, and then we'll get after it. Maybe we'll just do a few of these, and then we'll go to the poll at the end. I don't know. This is the first time we're trying this since we started this whole super chat thing. So let's go. What do we got? Let's take some questions. Can even just be like random stuff. Could be stuff that you threw out there earlier in the show. I don't know. The world is your oyster. Or just thoughts or comments about something. Thanks, Eyes Are Planets. Jed, we'll begin with you. What changes would the UFC have to make to become a more exciting organization? Realistic changes that Dana, etc., might actually make in the current environment. What change would you make yourself, Jed?
I would point to two things coming at this from different perspectives. One, I would pare back their events. The issue with UFC events, as we kind of addressed earlier, or at least sort of touched on, is there's just too many of them. 42 to 45 events a year is a lot. And that's why we get a lot of Apex cards. I don't have the same issue that many do with the venue, but it's not a great venue. My issue is largely that if you look at those Apex cards, they are primarily composed of regional fights just happening under the UFC banner. You want more exciting fights, you just need better fighters. And instead of hiring volume, hire for quality. So that would be paring down the roster, going from whatever it's between like 600 and 700 down to 4 or 5, do 3 events a month, and your overall fight quality is going to raise pretty dramatically, making more exciting product. My second thing from a very different perspective would be legalizing strikes to grounded fighters, knees to the head, the most obvious. I'm also extremely pro allowing soccer kicks, just because of that. They change the dynamic of fighting dramatically. They make it far more fun. People are like, oh, they're super violent. I don't know, man. Like, I watched Pride. I've watched soccer kicks and stomps for most of my life at this point. I've seen far more violent stuff happen than that. Like, those are usually just, oh, this fight's over now, instead of there being a gray area of like, oh, how many of these 18 punches is enough? It's like, oh, no. The 2 kicks was good. We're done here. So I would legalize that. They would immediately. And that's like obviously a commission thing, but it's for the people to be like, oh, the UFC's in charge of that. Yeah, they are. Like, how do you think the commission rules came about? Because the UFC had a lobbying plan for years on end to get this sport accepted in broadly in commissions and to sort of effectuate those things. So the UFC wanted to, they could lobby for these to be included and start making that transition happen and make their product way more exciting.
Rick, what change would you make? And what changes could Dana make to make it a more quote unquote exciting organization?
Yeah, I'm really trying to stick to the realism here because, while I agree with Jed, lowering
neither are happening,
which I have advocated for forever, will never happen. There's not a chance in hell. It's a 0.00% chance. 2 things I could think of off the top of the head: potentially walking back some of the restrictions on personality and character and figuring out a new way to work with a uniform provider to make things more interesting. They're boring. And I think it's a holdover from when they were really trying to go super corporate and lean into like, we're a professional fight organization. Here, we're for sale. Come sponsor us. They're leaning way so far the other direction into like freedom of speech and these types of things that I do think there's a world where maybe they could find some partners that are able to work with them and kind of loosen up some of that, allow the fighters to have a little more personality, figure out something to do there. Really good idea. Yeah.
That's a really good idea, Rick.
It just feels like it's going that direction anyway.
Dude, they should tier them, right? Like, the whole uniform thing is dumb as shit. But if you're going to do it, you should tier it. So like, all right, because they already do, like, champions get the black and gold champion thing, which I don't think is like, honestly looks all that good and whatever. Should be like, all right, when you're a champion, you can wear whatever the hell shorts you want. Like, you are the champion. You get that grace. When you're a ranked fighter, here's our ranked apparel that looks cool. When you're in your first 5 fights in the organization, you get the shittiest shorts possible. Like, there's no options. And then every time you're fighting, you're like, oh, this dude's about to hit his 8th fight in the UFC. Now he gets to move into the cooler ones in the same way they do, premium gaming or whatever. You just buy skins. This is way better. This is the best idea you've ever had, Rick.
That's great. It just feels like it's going that way. Like we circled back around to like the openness and letting people show their personalities by not limiting what they're saying on the mic. I think we can apply that to some of the things and not necessarily turn into NASCAR as Dana White's fear at the time was.
NASCAR rocks.
Also,
I don't know why that's a bad thing. Have you ever seen a NASCAR race? Does it look like those people are having a bad time?
It feels
Oh no, I can't enjoy the racing because of all the decals on the car. Not at
by the
all what
way-
happens.
The cage looks like that now, by the way. The
Yeah.
cage is just a NASCAR car. Like the entire cage is slapped with logos
Yeah.
and stickers. So I think
I'm
that
pro
would be
getting rid of
a fun
Condom Depot
option.
on everybody's ass. Like that made sense to me when you're trying to get on ESPN. You don't want that.
There
But,
was
like,
worse.
Oh, I mean, there was a lot worse, but still, like
Yeah.
it's just. This is a terrific answer. Rick wins this question for sure. Let
should.
fighters have personality. It's way more fun.
Yeah.
Love it. Hey, what else we got? It's a good question.
Thanks. It was super chatty.
I'm with the less is
Oh,
more.
here we go.
Oh, look who's back again. The two guys with the lamest takes. He loves Fluffy, Maverick, and Lemos. All locks to win. Jed, you're both. Jed co-hosts a gambling show. New York Ric, you even said you like to bet. What do you think of his takes? Fluffy, Maverick, Lemos, all locks to win.
I have underdog bets on Roman Kopylov and Mackenzie Dern, though as established, the Mackenzie Dern one is an idiot's bet that will lose. I mean, Fluffy could win, but also Kopylov has been a pretty good defensive wrestler and he hits real hard. So if Fluffy can't take him down, then we'll see how that fight goes. I mean, Miranda Maverick's probably going to beat Andre Lee, but I don't think anyone should consider Miranda Maverick a lock over any real opponent that she is facing at this point. Like, it's just sort of where we're at with that division in general and those fighters specifically. So yeah, I mean, I think that they are likely to win, but that's also what the odds would tell you. So that's not really going on a big limb there.
Yeah, they're not locks. But Achilles Jr., I would love to hear your explanation. If you could lay it out, super chat in, just let me know
Rifting this man.
why they're locks, because I don't agree. I don't think that they're locks. I think, as Jed said, they might be likely to win, but I think we need to hear an explanation for this. So do me a favor, super chat in, and let me know why they're locks.
It's super chatting with you, Keyless.
Macy's daughters are fighting first Saturday. Who you got?
What does that mean?
I
The
assume
first
it's
fight of the
Macy
night.
Barber.
Oh,
has
Lee and
beaten-
Maverick are.
has
Lee and
beaten
Lee.
Maverick and Lee.
Beat
Okay,
each of them
yeah.
by
I was going to
split
say,
decision,
Macy Barber
yeah.
cannot have children, right? She is
Yeah.
a child herself.
Yeah, I think Maverick
Okay.
wins. I think Maverick wins that fight. But I don't think, to Jed's point, like, she can't be a lock over anybody at this point in her career. Like, yeah, she should win.
Yeah.
I mean,
Look, I'll tell you what. Andrea Lee
look,
extends
she
this
lost to
thing
Jasmine
and
Jazz
starts
Davicius,
thumping a
who's
little
like
bit.
fun. Like, we all like
Yeah.
Jazz Davicius, but Jasmine Jazz Davicius is not the best fighter in the world, you know?
A lot of people thought Andrea Lee beat Macy Barber when they fought. So I think it's close. I think it's a close fight. I think there's value on KGB. She needs this one way more than Miranda Maverick does.
She will get cut if she loses. So,
There's a chance. There's definitely a good chance. Okay. J Fish 5 Hundo describing Bilal being in the main event for 300 akin to the last minute booty call. I mean, that's what it is. It's crazy.
It's a pretty
crazy.
Pretty good analogy.
I legit feel bad for him. The
bad you up text of MMA.
Yeah.
Is that the
What
nickname?
are you doing?
Bilal, you
what
up?
you doing?
Oh, that's so much better than remember
Bilal,
the
you up,
name, which is
Muhammad?
corny as shit anyway. Bilal, you up?
That's good.
Wow.
The answer is most of the time no. He's not up.
Fair.
Well, if he wants a title shot, he better be awake for that text. At least don't put it on vibrate. Certainly don't silence it. You turn that volume up on that ringer all the way to a hundo and hope it quit. My question is, if Alex wins, does he go up to 55 for good, or does he give Movsar Evloev the title shots? This is an interesting question. I'll start with you, Rick. If Volkanovski goes out and does Volkanovski things and beats Ilia Topuria, has this fantastic performance, is this his last fight at 145, in your opinion?
No, probably not. I think there's at least enough names that he could do a few more, and I think it would behoove him to do that, reestablish 145 before deciding, okay, now I'm finally done and going up to 55. Would I be shocked if he's tired of making this weight cut and tired of knocking off 45 contenders and just wants to go to 55? Not at all, but I wouldn't expect it. I think there's at least a few new names here that might be potentially intriguing. So I wouldn't expect it. No.
What do you think, Jed?
I don't think he should. I think he probably will. I just so not to rehash an old argument. This weekend is the beginning of the Alexander Volkanovski GOAT campaign for me. I've said this for years pretty easily. Jose Aldo is a featherweight GOAT. I don't think it is competitive. This weekend is the first step that Alexander Volkanovski has to actually chase that down, right? Like, because this will be his 6th title defense. Aldo has 9. That's getting in striking distance, right? Like, it's still, 150% or whatever, however the math works. Like, he still needs a lot to get there. But more importantly, this is his first time fighting the next generation of fighters. Like, champions, particularly long-reigning champions, the tops end up fighting 3 generations. They fight the generation that came before them. They are the new guard that has taken the torch from them. They fight their contemporaries. And then if you're really, really good and can hold that belt for years on end, then you have to fight against the new generation, and you have to hold off the new generation for as long as you can. And eventually, if you stay competing, somebody's going to get you. It happens with Anderson Silva, with Fedor, etc. But you stay at the top of the mountain for as long as you can. And that's the test of the greatness. Like, to me, that has always been the test of the greatness. Topuria is the first one. Like, he is the first. I guess maybe you can argue Yair Rodriguez, though that feels a little more like same generation. Undeniably, Topuria is of a different generation than Alexander Volkanovski. Movsar Evloev is in that generation. To me, his all-time great legacy would do better to stay, hey, I'm going to defend against Topuria. I'm going to defend against Evloev. Maybe somebody else gets in there as the third. Then suddenly I have 7, 8, 9 title defenses with Jose Aldo. I've beaten Jose Aldo, even though I would say that was, not peak Jose Aldo, but got the win over him. I have a comparable number of defenses, and I have also beaten several generations. I am the GOAT. It is mine. You cannot deny me. I think instead he will say, I beat this one dude. No one's going to be upset if I don't fight Evloev. I'm going to go chase bigger money, bigger accomplishments, quote unquote, at lightweight. So I expect him to leave the division if he wins.
If that's the case, why come back to fight Topuria at all? Why not just go to 55?
I think you do it because one, this is sort of the biggest fight. Like, if Evloev had the same sort of impetus, momentum behind him, I think Volk would stay and fight Evloev. It's just that people don't even like Evloev that much. Like, despite the fact that he's extremely good, etc. Dana White shit on his last fight, and it was a fine fight. Like, there's just not that same siren call to Evloev as there's with Topuria. And I also think that this is in the same way that he went back and fought Yair after losing to Islam, like, hey, don't forget who I am. He just got knocked out. He needs to reestablish, hey, don't forget who I am. That's forever. And now I'll go hunt the bigger game at 155. I hope I'm wrong. I legitimately hope I'm wrong. I would much rather see him try and hold down the fort against Evloev and this whoever is next after that. But I think he has made the decision in his head. The bigger money is at lightweight. I should chase that now.
That's the part that's hanging me up. I kind of get that, but then if that was the mindset, I think he would have just went to 55 already. Like, there's really not a point to going back to 45. It's just a pit stop just to say, hey, I'm at 45 and now I'm vacating. It feels inefficient. It feels not useful.
It would be weird to do that after getting knocked out by the champion, right? Like, if he had done it after beating Yair, but it feels like after you get knocked out by the lightweight champion, if you're like, hey, I'm done with 45, I want to chase a third fight with this dude who has 2 wins over me. It feels weird. I think he comes back.
Well, I don't think he's chasing. I don't think he's chasing Islam. He's not in that race anymore. That's a race he's not going to be in for quite a bit.
Firm agree, but I think he just comes back, solidifies the legacy at 145 against the next guy.
I get it. I think that's possible. Just logically, that doesn't really. If this was just a pit stop, it feels useless. Build yourself toward 55 and just go. Like, it feels not necessary.
And we'll close out with this reminder to Jed that Aldo is not the GOAT. He has lost to every undisputed featherweight champion. Jed
Yeah,
loves
no, he's
this
the GOAT.
conversation.
I mean, you're just trying to get a rise out of me.
Can I just ask, what is your rubric for GOAT? How do you define GOAT?
So, one, this is a terrific question, Rick, because that's the most important. Like, no, it is legitimately because
nobody argues the same thing. That's why it's so dumb. Nobody
Yeah.
says the same thing. So what is that?
To me, there's a very clear difference between greatness and best. Like the term great, I believe that Alexander Volkanovski is a better fighter than Jose Aldo, even at their peaks. To me, I think Alexander Volkanovski has a claim to being the best fighter I've ever seen fist fight. Greatness is accomplishment. It is strictly a measure of
resume
accomplishment.
conversation.
Yes, because like Mike, this will ring home for you. I think it's fairly undeniable that Patrick Mahomes is a better quarterback than Tom Brady was. Tom Brady is undeniably a greater quarterback than Patrick Mahomes at this stage. Like Patrick Mahomes has accomplished an incredible amount. He hasn't done it for 20 some odd years, and he doesn't have the boxes checked. That is, greatness is to me a measure of accomplishment, and to discount that because of the various factors we do is just sort of a social pressure or desire to like always be part of, oh, this is the greatest thing ever, and I was here for it, and not the previous thing. Like, no, Jose Aldo has 9 title defenses. He held the belt for 7 years. Like that means something. I would also argue that Jose Aldo's, during his reign, the gap between him and the next best dude was wider than the gap between Volk and the next best dudes, and that is another factor that I think should kind of add into the greatness category, because you can only fight your contemporaries. Time is linear. You can't be like, oh, I am better than the future, because things get better over time. Jose Aldo has simply accomplished more than any other featherweight. And yes, he has losses, but guess what, boys? If Volk loses to Topuria, suddenly we run the risk of him being in that category too. You hang around too long, you're not Habib and don't get out at the right point, everyone's career can be sort of retconned and reconsidered after the fact. Until Volk has at least 7 title defenses, I don't think that it's a conversation. If he gets to 7 title defenses, then I'm open to it. I'm open to assessing like, hey, how does this merit? But at 5 versus 9, 3.5 years or whatever Volk's at versus almost 8, it's not like those aren't the same thing. In the same way, Patrick Mahomes' resume does not stack up to Tom Brady's legitimately.
No, I think it's a completely fair way to analyze it. I would just ask, the gap in competition level, you see that as a plus for Aldo as opposed to a demerit? Wouldn't the idea that facing tougher competition raise the importance of each of those title defenses as an example, right? Beating Max Holloway 3 times matters to me more than beating Mark Hominick, right? So
I think most people do view it that way, and I think that's a fundamentally bad way to view it, because that's viewing all time frames as the same. That is being like, hey, so all of us are operating on the same things. Whereas in my conception of this, it's like, hey, this dude, everyone can only fight the best dudes around them. This dude was so much better than everyone around him that is, again, if we were talking about the terms of best, yes, that's why I think Volk is a better fighter than Jose Aldo. Like, he beat better quote unquote fighters. Jose Aldo also wasn't fighting in this time period. Like, he fought at a different era. And to me, that's how that factors in, of he was so much better that is meaningful in a way, as opposed to, hey, he was like a little bit better than better fighters, but
I get that, but the potential,
we don't get Alexander Volkanovski without Jose Aldo. Like, it's that's how that sort of all plays off at each other.
I mostly agree with a lot of that, but I would say the chances of losing are a lot higher when you're facing better competition as well, right? Maybe that title defense streak doesn't go as long when you're facing guys who are better.
That's why I said I'm open to it at 7. So
yeah,
I was like, I'm open. He didn't have to get to 9. I do agree that, like, yes, in the same way that Bill Russell's 11 championships don't make him the GOAT or whatever. Like, when you up that, then certain considerations are made. So I think at 7 it becomes a real conversation between there and at
it sounds
that point,
all fair and well reasoned to me.
I've thought about this just an enormous amount over the last few years. It's because, like, again, he's the best fighter. I actually think he's the best fighter I've ever seen.
To address this part specifically, head-to-head wins are not legacy defining things. Like certainly you have to
Largely to
factor
me,
that
no.
in, but that's not how things are measured, right? You're getting people at different times in their careers and things like that.
Right.
Like Conor McGregor coming around when Jose Aldo is most vulnerable to that. I don't consider head-to-head wins, or Volkanovski is getting Jose Aldo when he's most vulnerable to that. I don't consider head-to-head wins as like the measuring stick for a lot of these conversations.
Absolutely. And in the same, like, if Topuria goes out here and knocks out Volk and then puts together 4 title defenses, maybe, but he goes out there and puts together 3 and we start prematurely crowning him as the greatest featherweight, be like, that's bullshit. He's not, one, he's not at Aldo, and 2, he's not a Volk. Like, just because he knocks this dude, they're, to me, those are completely separate things. And the same, like, it is just, and it's so obvious to me, like, yeah, that he caught down, back of his back 9 career Volk. It's like beating Tony Ferguson now is not as impressive,
Agreed.
All right, I think we have one more. We'll go
Our
to the poll.
final super chat, and the
yes.
most important one.
Super chatting with you,
By the way, Tom Brady has not only the resume, but he also has head-to-head wins over Patrick Mahomes in big spots. So he's got it all.
I forgot that
Championship
Tom
game,
Brady
whoop that
was
ass in the Super
absolutely
Bowl.
playing that middle linebacker spot. I think that the GOAT argument's about as dumb as possible in football terms, just because it's like Tom Brady never played Patrick Mahomes. He played the defense that was on the same team as Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. The two of them never shared the field one time.
As you increase the number of players, on a roster, the conversation becomes as dumb as possible. Like basketball, you're at least still in the realm of how big an impact you can have. Dudes. Football, dumb. Stupid conversation.
Whoever that special teams player who the ball hit his leg and the punt, I don't know the guy's name because he's a special teamer, cost the 49ers a Super Bowl, and Patrick Mahomes gets attacked on his jacket.
Teams, dynasties, we can talk about that all day long. Individual players in that team setting, stupid to me. Let's not talk about it.
I shouldn't even have said anything. All right, last one.
Particularly because we all agreed. We were all like, yes, Brady's the GOAT.
But I know it's just something we had to bring up.
He's okay. All right.
New England
Final
people love that argument. One of my best friends is from New England and just loves it.
It's a no doubter. It's the best.
Yeah, baby.
I'm not falling for that trick, Rick. I'm not that dumb.
He pays double what he paid before to tell me that. Thank you.
Achilles,
He's the hero. Achilles Jr. is the GOAT.
He's the GOAT. He's a super chat GOAT.
Absolute hero.
All right, Casey, put up the poll. Let's have people vote. Who wins? Jed, New York.
Oh, he's gonna do it right now. Oh, okay. Hold on.
Put the poll up. Yeah, I didn't realize we were going for.
We've got good comments coming in here. Look at these people being smart. Max's resume props up Volk's. To an extent, it does, but also Fedor's resume for years was propped up by Nog. So, sometimes that happens.
Our comment section's been on fire the last few weeks. Yeah, we're pretty much done. We're gonna vote.
I can leave. We're good.
Well, we're voting.
You want to leave?
You
don't even want to see who won? Jed won. What are we even doing this for? Can I just go?
I gotta give him some time. Hold on.
What are we even doing this for?
Jed won.
He's already
good.
This is brilliant. This is freaking brilliant. Oh, he's taking the thing. This is unbelievable.
What's this Howie Mandel podcast?
Vote for Rick, everyone.
Look, this is confusing as hell. We're gonna do Heck of a Morning tomorrow. We'll have the weigh-in show at noon Eastern tomorrow for 2. We'll have a preview show. Maybe New York Ric's chair will be a part of the preview show on sometime tomorrow. I'm not sure what time. And then Saturday, that's when all the bells and whistles are gonna come on. People's pre-fight show. We'll have the watch party. Casey will be on the scene. Press conference, post-fight interviews, etc. On to the next one on Sunday. Post-fight show. It's going to be a busy weekend.
He's back. He's back.
He couldn't stay away. Oh, he's folding laundry, perhaps? I don't know. Okay. How's the poll looking?
I hope everyone is flooding with Rick.
I hope Rick wins so bad.
30 seconds in the chair.
Wait, I don't even know what's... Okay, the poll seems to be broken, actually. It's not
Rick
working.
Wins.
The poll is broken right now. It is not working.
You pick, Casey. You pick.
Casey.
All right.
Old school style.
Hold on. Okay, let me... All right. Your winner today with 1 vote being me is... Oh, it's tough. Eric Jackman!
Yeah!
Oh, what timing. He's back.
Wow.
Did you know you won, New York Ric?
Oh, I won.
That's a walk-off
Yes.
win. A walk-off win.
You know,
A Mark
nobody's more
Hunt
surprised than me.
BTL-like performance. Incredible. What do you like to say to the people?
Yeah, thank you, Casey, and the people. Once again, I mean, you know, Casey, you know I love you, but an unforced error on your part. Jed definitely won today, but I'm thankful and appreciative of your vote of confidence. It's always a pleasure to win this. Shout out to all you guys, especially the people who are getting used to this new super chatting thing. You're the best. And yeah, like, let's enjoy UFC 298. I think let's put away the pressure and anticipation of UFC 300, if not for just one night, to really enjoy UFC 298, which I think is a spectacular card. And yeah, I'm super excited about the main event, and I think you all should be too. Thanks, Goose. I do this for you.
Hit the music, Casey. We have gone on long
Casey-
enough. Jed, do you have anything you want to say before we
Casey,
go?
I had a sign saying that I loved you the whole time, and you do me like this. It hurts. But I love you, Kansas City. You're a great city. And stay strong.
Kansas City strong, baby. Kansas City strong. You can hit the music. We are done. Yes, I think Jed summed that up perfectly. New York Ric also summed it up perfectly. Even the chair has left the building, which is just a savvy move by New York Ric.
Where
But
did the chair go?
let's enjoy UFC 298. This is high-level shit, and it's as good as it gets for an MMA fan as far as I'm concerned. But we'll be back next week to recap it all, to get you ready for Mexico City. And yes, PFL versus Bellator, champs versus champs. A lot to discuss next week in the program. So for Chad, New York Ric, Casey, I am Mike Heck. The iconic voice of Esterlin takes you home. We're back next week. Good night, everyone.
Love y'all!
This has been Between the Links, an MMA fighting production on the Vox Media Network.